The Goguryeo Wei War was a series of invasions of the Chinese state of Wei against the Proto-Korean kingdom of Goguryeo from 244 to 245. The invasions, a retaliation of a Goguryeo raid in 242, destroyed the Goguryeo capital of Wando, sent its king fleeing, and broke the tributary relationships between Goguryeo and the other tribes of Korea that formed much of Goguryeo economy. Although the king evaded capture and eventually settled in a new capital, Goguryeo was reduced to such insignificance that for half a century there was no mention of the state in Chinese historical texts. By the time Goguryeo reappeared in Chinese annals, the state had evolved into a much more powerful political entity. Thus the Wei invasion was identified by historians as a watershed moment in Goguryeo history that divided the different stages of Goguryeo growth. In addition, the second campaign of the war included the furthest expedition into Manchuria by a Chinese army up to that time and was therefore instrumental in providing the earliest descriptions of the peoples who lived there. Background: the polity of Goguryeo developed among the peoples of Manchuria and the Korean Peninsula during the 1st and 2nd century BC as the Chinese Han Dynasty extended its control to Northeast Asia, creating the four commanderies of Han. As it grew and centralized, Goguryeo increasingly contacted and conflicted with China. Goguryeo consolidated its power by conquering the territories on the north of the peninsula which were under Chinese rule. When the power of the Han dynasty declined to internal turmoils in the 2nd century AD, the warlord Gongsun came to control the commanderies of Liaodong and Shanchu, directly adjacent to Goguryeo. Gongsun faction often quarreled with Goguryeo despite initial cooperation, and the conflict culminated in the Goguryeo succession feud of 204, which Gongsun successor Gongsun Kang exploited. Though the candidate supported by Gongsun Kang was eventually defeated, the victor Sansang of Goguryeo was compelled to move his capital southeast from Jolbon on the Hunjiang River to Wando on the Yalu River, which offered better protection. Gongsun Kang moved in and restored order to the Lelang Commandery and established the new Daifang Commandery by splitting the southern part of Lelang. Compared to the agriculturally rich Jolbon area, Wando was situated in a mountainous region with little arable land. To sustain the economy after the move, Wando had to constantly extract resources from the peoples in the countryside, which included the tribal communities of Goguryeo and Yi. The Goguryeo were said to have worked as virtual slaves to the Goguryeo king, hauling provisions from the peninsula's northeast to the Yalu Basin, reflecting the arrangement that Goguryeo had to adopt after the entry of Gongsun Kang. By the 230s, Goguryeo had regathered their strength from these tributary relations and regained their presence in the Jolbon region. In 234, the Han dynasty's successor state Wei established friendly contact with Goguryeo, and in 238 an alliance between Wei and Goguryeo destroyed their common enemy Gongsun Yuan, the last of the Gongsun warlords. Wei took over all of Gongsun Yuan's territories, including Lelang and Daifang. Now Wei's influence was extended into the Korean peninsula, adjacent to Goguryeo. The alliance broke down in 242, when King Dongchen of Goguryeo plundered the Liaodong district of Xianping at the mouth of the Yalu River. The motive for the raid, though not exactly clear, was suggested to be either a search for new agricultural land or competition for the control of the small river Mak people nearby, a branch of the Goguryeo people known for their excellent bows. In any case, since a Goguryeo presence there would cut off the land routes between the Chinese heartland and the peninsular commanderies. The Wei court reacted most strongly to this apparent threat to their control of Lelang and Daifang. First campaign, the Battle of Liangkou. In response to Goguryeo aggression, the inspector of Yu Province, Wang Qiujian, set out from Shanchu Commandery into Goguryeo with 7 legions, amounting to 10,000 infantry and cavalry in total, in 244. From the seat of government in Shanchu, Goguryeo army went up the valley of the Suzi River, a tributary of the Hanjiang River, to present-day Xinbin County, and from there crossed the watershed to the east and entered the Hanjiang River Valley. King Dongzhen marched with 20,000 infantry and cavalry out from his capital Wando to meet the advancing army. The king's army traveled through several river valleys and met Goguryeo army at the junction of the Fuer River and the Hanjiang River, a place known as Liangkou. Liangkou was to become the site of the first battles between Goguryeo and King Dongzhen. Sources differ on how the battles played out. The later Korean source Samguk-sagi state that Goguryeo army invaded in the 8th lunar month of the year, but was twice defeated before winning the crucial battle that sent the king back to the capital. The first battle, according to Samguk-sagi, pitted King Dongzhen's 20,000 foot and horse soldiers against Goguryeo 10,000-man strong army on the Hanjiang River, which Goguryeo won and beheaded 3,000 Wei soldiers. The second engagement was described to have happened in a dale of Liangmo, where Goguryeo again bested and captured and killed 3,000 more soldiers. The two victories seem to have got into the king's head as he remarked to his generals, "The Wei army, so enormous, cannot match a small force of ours. Goguryeo is a great general of Wei, and today his life is in my hands." He then led 5,000 ironclad horsemen to lead the charge against Goguryeo, who put his troops in square formation and fought desperately. In the end, 18,000 Goguryeo men were killed in this last battle, and the defeated king fled to the plain of Yalu with a little more than 1,000 horsemen. In contrast, the near-contemporary biography of Goguryeo in volume 28 of Records of Three Kingdoms, containing the Chinese account of this battle, state that King Dongzhen was repeatedly defeated in the tremendous fight at Liangkou and was forced to flee. Japanese researcher Hiroshi Ikushi points out that the Korean account was transformed from Goguryeo biography, reversing the results of the battles before Liangkou in order to save Goguryeo's face. The same researcher also suggests that the aforementioned Dale of Liangmo place was fabricated by the biased historian sympathetic to Goguryeo. Nonetheless, both Chinese and Korean sources agree on the fact that King Dongzhen ultimately lost the Battle of Liangkou and headed back to Wando. The capture of Wando, the Wei army gave chase to the routed Goguryeo army after the Battle of Liangkou. According to the Chinese source History of Northern Dynasties, Goguryeo reached Chengxian, determined to be the present-day mountain pass Shaobansha Ridge, also called Banshi Ridge. Since the mountainous region rendered the cavalry ineffective, the Wei army fastened their horses and chariots there and climbed up to mountain city of Wando. Goguryeo first struck the stronghold guarding the main city and then descended upon the capital, where the Wei army wrought much destruction, slaughtering and capturing over thousands of people. Goguryeo specifically spared the tomb and family of Doikri, a Goguryeo minister who frequently remonstrated against aggression toward Wei and starved himself to death in protest when his advices went unheeded. The king and his family fled the capital. With the Goguryeo capital subjugated, Goguryeo returned to Yu province with his army in around June 245. On the way back, he had a tablet erected in Chengxian commemorating his victory, explaining the course of events, and listing the generals who participated in the campaign. A fragment of the monument was discovered in 1905, near the end of the Qing dynasty, bearing the following mutilated inscription. A corresponds to year 242. B corresponds to year 244. C corresponds to around June 245. D. Identified as Kalaudun's Wuhuan Chani of Yu Baiping's second campaign. Wang Kuai's pursuit of King Dongchen. King Dongchen had returned to the abandoned capital of Wando after the Wei army retreated homeward. But in the same year Wang Kujian sent the Grand Administrator of Shanchu, Wang Qi, in pursuit of the king. Since the capital had been so ravaged and rendered defenseless by the previous campaign, the king had to flee again with his nobles of several ranks to South Goguryeo. According to the Samguk Sagi, the king's escape was aided by Mil Yu, a man of the Eastern Department. When the king's troops had all but scattered to the last handful at Jukrayong Pass, Mil Yu said to the king, "I will go back and hold the enemy at bay while you make good your escape," and held the narrow pass with 3 or 4 soldiers while the king made his way to regroup with a band of friendly troops. The king offered a reward to anyone who could bring Mil Yu back to safety, and a Uokegu found Mil Yu lying on the ground with grievous injuries. The king was so delighted to recover his faithful retainer that he personally nursed Mil Yu back to life. The chase from Wando to South Goguryeo took the two parties across the Yeollamu River into North Korea. The precise route of the chase may have passed by present-day Kangya, from where there are 2 possibilities. One, heading east through the Rangram Mountains, then south to present-day Changjin, the other following the Changje River south then turning east to reach Changjin. From Changjin, the pursuer and the pursued followed the Changjin River south until they reached the vast and fertile Hamhung Plains, where the river flowed into the East Korea Bay. It was here in Hamhung that the South Goguryeo people thrived, and thus King Dongchen came here for refuge. When Wang Kuai's army arrived, however, the Goguryeo tribes were all defeated, with 3,000 tribesmen killed or captured. The king fled again, and the Wei army turned toward North Goguryeo. The Samguk Sagi relates to an event that purported to have happened in South Goguryeo. Yu, another man of the Eastern Department, feigned the surrender of King Dongchen to stop the Wei pursuit. Bearing food and gifts, Yu was allowed into the camp of an unnamed Wei general. When the general received him, Yu pulled out a hidden dagger from under the plates and fatally stabbed the Wei general. He was likewise killed by the attendants at the next moment, but the damage had been done. The Wei army, having lost their commander, was thrown into confusion. King Dongchen took this opportunity to gather his forces and struck his enemy in 3 columns. The Wei armies, unable to recover from the confusion, at last retired from Lelang. This passage was not paralleled in Chinese records, and Hiroshi Ikusi points out its errors. The author of this passage in Samguk Sagi regarded the region of South Goguryeo and Lelang as identical, while in fact they are on opposite sides of the peninsula. Also, the references to the Eastern Department for Yu and Mil Yu are anachronistic, since Goguryeo did not divide the country into departments until the middle of the Goguryeo dynasty, that is, after Dongchen's reign. As such, Ikusi considered the Samguk Sagi stories of the Wei invasion unreliable. Traveling along the coast of the Sea of Japan, Wang Kuai's army made its way to the lands of the North Goguryeo, assumed to be around the Jamao area today. Despite records suggesting that the king came to the North Goguryeo settlement of Maig, there is no telling what became of the king in North Goguryeo, and Wang Kuai's army continued further north inland. Turning northwest at the border of Goguryeo and the Sushan, they traversed the Mutin River basin, home of the Yilao people, and crossed the Zhangguangkai Mountains into the plains on the other side. Finally, the trek northwest brought them to the Baiyi kingdom on the Ashi River, near present-day Harbin. Baiyi's regent Wigeo, acting on behalf of the nominal King Mayu, formally received the Wei army outside their capital in present-day Ashang district and replenished their supplies. Having overextended their reach and lost sight of their target, Wang Huai's army turned southwest from Baiya to return to Shanchu Commandery, passing by the present-day areas of Nong'ar County and Kaiyuan. Upon their return, they had completed a circular trip traversing Liaodong, North Korea, and Manchuria. The subjugation of the Yi by Gongsun and Lu Mao concurrently. Wang Qi sent a detached force to attack the Yi of Eastern Korea since they were allied with Goguryeo. The force, led by the Grand Administrators of Lelang and Daifang, Lu Mao and Gongsun respectively, started from South Goguryeo and went south through the whole length of the region known as the Seven Counties of Lingdong. 6 out of the 7 counties, Dongyi, Bunai, Chantai, Wali, Yatumai, Qianmo, submitted to Lu Mao and Gongsun, while the remaining Wazhou County, being identical with Goguryeo, had already been subjugated by Wang Qi. In particular, the Marquis of Bunai, the preeminent county of the 7, was specified to have come surrendering with all his tribesmen. Lu Mao and Gongsun's march along the eastern coast of Korea may have brought them as far south as Ulgin, where the local elders informed them of an inhabited island to the east, an island which could possibly be Ulungda. Another inscription was erected at Bunai, supposedly to commemorate the feats of Wang Qi, Lu Mao, and Gongsun during the second campaign. However, unlike the tablet attributable to Guan Qiujian, this inscription has not been found. Aftermath and legacy. Although the king evaded capture, the Wei campaigns accomplished much to weaken the Goguryeo kingdom. Firstly, several thousands of the Goguryeo people were deported and resettled in China. Secondly, and more importantly, the intrusions into Goguryeo and Yi separated these Goguryeo tributaries from its central ruling structure and brought them back under the influence of the commanderies of Lelang and Daifang. In doing so, Wang Qi and his generals removed a substantial part of the Goguryeo economy and dealt Goguryeo a blow more severe than Gongsun Kang did 40 years ago. The Yi under the Marquis of Bunai became expected to provide provisions and transportation whenever Lelang and Daifang went off to war, and the Marquis himself was elevated to Yi King of Bunai by the Wei court in 247. In addition, Wang Huai's incursion into Baiyao's territory and the subsequent welcome by the hosts reconfirmed the friendly relations between Wei and Baiya, and tributes from Baiya to Wei would continue annually. When King Dongchen returned to Wando, he found the city to be too ravaged by war and too close to the border to be a suitable capital, and thus relocated his capital to a walled town in the plain in 247, moving his people and sacred shrines while leaving Wando to ruin. From this new capital, Goguryeo underwent significant reorganization, particularly in regards to its economic base, to recover from the devastation by the hands of Wei. Since the resources of Goguryeo and Yi were deprived, Goguryeo had to rely on the production of the old capital region of Jolbon while looking for new agricultural lands in other directions. The history of Goguryeo in the latter half of the 3rd century was characterized by Goguryeo attempts to consolidate nearby regions and restore stability as it dealt with rebellions and foreign invaders, purportedly including Wei again in 259 and the Sushan in 280, but the Yuchi surname did not come into being until after the year 386, hence making the record anachronistic. Goguryeo fortunes rose again during King Michun's rule, when the king took advantage of the weakness in Wei's successor the Jin dynasty and wrestled the commanderies of Lelang and Daifang from central Chinese control. By this time, Goguryeo completed 70 years of recovery and was transformed from a Chinese border state, existing mainly by the plunder of the Chinese outposts in the northeast, to a kingdom centered in Korea proper, in which the formerly independent tribal communities of the Goguryeo and others had been merged. In terms of historiography, the expeditions of the second campaign are significant for providing detailed information on the various peoples of the Korean peninsula and Manchuria. such as Goguryeo, Baiya, Okyeo, Yi, and Ayilao. The expedition, unprecedented in scale in those regions, brought first-hand knowledge about the topography, climate, population, language, manners, and customs of these areas to Chinese cognizance, and was duly recorded into the Wei by the contemporary historian Yuan. Though the original Wei is now lost, its contents were preserved in the records of three kingdoms, where the reports from the Goguryeo expedition are included in the chapter on Eastern barbarians, considered the most important single source of information for the culture and society of early Korean states and peoples.